It's time for our community spotlight. And today my guest is Joshua Sheriff, and he is with an organization that is called Warrior's Respite. And I'm going to let you talk about it, but let me first ask you a few questions.
Thank you.
We're talking about veterans, and I want to know what your organization does for veterans.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This is something that's near and dear to my heart. Both my wife and I are veterans. I was in for 5 years. I was deployed to Baghdad. I was at the 2009 Fort Hood shooting, and I struggled with PTSD for years before I finally found help. Our organization seeks to provide a place for veterans to come together that's outside of a bar, that is centered around a healing environment, and most importantly, is centered around Christ.
Yeah.
There is such a huge disconnect between the recovery programs at places like the VA and God. That is one of the biggest issues that they won't even approach.
Which is interesting because there's military chaplains. I would have thought there was some, I mean, they do have services. And if you request a chaplain, you can have that. It's not like they're saying, no, you can't have it.
Yeah.
But right, it's not spiritually based. So I love that that's part of what you're talking about, is that this is meeting veterans' spiritual health as well as their mental health.
Absolutely. The program that we have been working with for almost 5 years now is called Reboot Combat Recovery, which takes a spiritual approach to healing from PTSD. It is a 12-week program with different topics such as addressing the wounds that have taken place, understanding that trauma does not occur from combat. Trauma occurs from sin. And every one of us has had sin either happen to us or we have committed sin ourselves.
Ooh,
and it's understanding
that
there's so much more trauma than just what we experienced in the military. And this does a great job of starting the process of understanding the trauma that has occurred all the way back from childhood. And one of the exercises is actually listing each one of these, what we would see as being a traumatic event. And a big kind of paradigm in counseling is that perception is reality. What they have seen as being traumatic is what is traumatic for them.
No, you know what? I can completely speak to this because in the last couple of years, actually just the last year, I have learned this from personal experience. I never really understood it before, but I want people to understand what you're saying. So I got into a car accident where I walked away and the other woman did not. That was traumatic for me. That was really traumatic for me. The fact that I jumped out of the car in the first place, I was like, I did not expect to live through it. So that's the first part. The second part was, I mean, I had to deal with the fact that she didn't live, but I said something to someone who's a counselor and she said, you're not experiencing the trauma from the crash. You're experiencing something that happened in your past and that crash has just brought it up. And she was right, because the way I responded to this crash was actually something that I had experienced when I was younger. And it just brought up all those same fears and anxieties. Yeah. And I couldn't go to a stop sign and look to my left because the cars coming from the left caused me such anxiety that I thought one of them was going to come off the road, like what happened. And so I want people to understand that when you're talking about trauma, it's not just because they went to war. It's because they experienced something that brought up something that they have experienced before, because some people can actually handle it to an extent, or they handle it better, differently, I guess. Yeah. Right. Can you give us a little bit of insight? What does a veteran experience? What qualifies as PTSD? Because maybe somebody who hasn't, like, I didn't experience combat in the Marines. I was in the air wing and I was also in a different thing. And we never got sent to Desert Storm. Not my group anyway, but there are people like yourself who have gone. So help us understand what you experience and what qualifies as PTSD.
Sure. Well, I don't necessarily want to go get my DSM-5 to read the exact diagnostics, but It
in
is.
general?
Oh, sure. So there's going to be either 3 or 4 general areas of life that's affected by PTSD. There's going to be a hyperarousal. That's where we're constantly vigilant. We're overly vigilant. We're checking the exit. We're scanning the room. We're keeping our back to the wall. We're constantly looking
Oh, I do that.
at, yeah. And there is and this is all on a spectrum of from where it's good to be aware of your surroundings, complacency kills, all the way up to where you are so drained by how much you have to focus on these little things to where you can't enjoy anything, and it can lead to the next part, which is where you will refuse to go outside.
Oh, wow.
Agoraphobia, which comes from the Greek term agora, which is the marketplace. And so the idea is literally being afraid of being in a crowd, in a marketplace, anywhere where there are more people than you can keep
Your eyes on.
specific tabs on.
Yeah. So is there a way to identify if you have PTSD, or do you have to be clinically diagnosed with it?
You can usually have an idea. If not you, then your spouse. That's another part of the recovery program that we love so much, is that we don't just allow the spouse to be in attendance. We actually ask that they come, and that they join their veteran through this healing process.
Fantastic.
The idea is that the veteran has put them through the suck. And if you're military, you know what that means. So it's, if you put them through the suck, bring them to the healing as well. And you or your spouse is going to be able to know, there are certain places where the hairs on the back of your neck kind of stand up. You start getting a little bit tense. And what we don't realize is our body is actually physically reacting. It's psychosomatic.
Yes.
Our brain starts turning on, and our body, our chest gets tight, our shoulders get up. We're literally preparing for a fight, just as if we were encountering a direct threat.
Yes.
And that spikes our blood pressure. That gets the adrenaline going, which produces cortisol in our brain, which can prohibit brain functions and development. There's so many areas to this that are just unheard of in normal conversations.
They train us to an extent to be this way. I mean, in boot camp, I mean, I don't know about Army, but Marines were pretty intense.
There we go. Is it true you guys get a little pack of crayons with every MRE as well?
No, but my son graduated boot camp from the Air National Guard, and I said, "How cool is it to throw a grenade?" And he goes, "We didn't throw a grenade." And I go, "What? Like, that's the most fun."
Yeah, that and the heavy weapons range. Oh, yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Okay. So I digress. So tell me, let's talk about the program that you've been running for 4 years in Mansfield area. So tell me about this program and what it offers.
Yes, ma'am. So it is called Reboot Combat Recovery, which is an international program. It was started by Jenny and Evan Owens. It was developed by psychologists, psychiatrists, and in conjunction with Jenny and Evan Owens. Jenny has her PhD in occupational therapy, and she was working only with veterans. And she decided to leave occupational therapy and develop this program after having so many of her veterans that she successfully physically rehabilitated, only to have them go and kill themselves and become one of those 22 a day.
It's unbelievable that statistic exists, that 22 veterans will kill themselves in a day. It shouldn't be that way. These are people that we should be protecting because they gave us our freedom.
Yeah, it's losing almost an entire platoon a day.
Oh my gosh.
And that kind of battle loss would be completely unacceptable, to lose a platoon a day.
Right. Right.
I mean, you would have leaders being recalled left and right, losing their rank, losing their positions.
Yeah.
It would be, it's unheard of to lose 22 a day in combat. Yet we lose, 22 a day on average here.
Wow.
It just tells me that there is so much more that needs to be addressed and treated and talked about, and awareness that's brought than what we're doing. And there's so much already being done. A quick sideline, on average, the VA crisis line gets about 90,000 calls a year on average.
Wow.
The 3-day time span of the Afghanistan withdrawal debacle that just happened, there was over 30,000 calls to the VA crisis line.
Because they were affected by that. Wow. That's unbelievable.
They had a third of the entire year's calls in a 3-day time span.
Oh my gosh. How do we help our veterans? Veterans Day is just around the corner, and there's something that we can all do. So I guess I want to get people to you or to other organizations that can help them. So what do we need to do as a community?
It's hard. A lot of us will simply, say thank you for your service, thank you for your sacrifice, and move on. It's really up to our families and our friends to try and check on us. It doesn't remove responsibility from the veteran to get help that they need, but there is times when we just aren't ready to get that help yet. Mm-hmm. And having our friends or family check on us, saying, how are you doing? How are things going? I know things have been tough lately. Check with their spouse, check with their kids. Don't say, hey, has daddy been acting weird or anything like that to the kids, but just check with the kids. Cause I will be the first to tell you, I was that stereotypical PTSD dad. I was constantly isolating and keeping myself away from my wife and my kid, not because I wanted to avoid them, but because it felt like that was the only way to keep them safe.
Oh, wow. Because yeah.
I would blow up. Michael, he was 2 at the time. He would start screaming or throwing a fit, and I would just go red.
Wow.
I would just see red, and I could do nothing. I would just clench my jaw, and I would quickly go to my office, lock the door, and just plug my ears, because if I didn't do that, I was going to start screaming. And it was such a terrible time in my life, because there was this little bundle of joy who is just the spitting image of me, and I could see loved everything about me. And it was so hard to understand why he loved me so much when I hated myself so much.
Wow.
I hated everything about me.
Veterans need to know, veterans like you and others need to know that it's not your fault that you're feeling these things. You just have to understand them, because understanding them is going to help you in so many ways for that recovery. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. It's called psychoeducation. And that's a huge part of that Reboot Combat Recovery, is simply helping the veteran and the spouse to become aware of the issues that are so prevalent with PTSD and how they affect your mind, how they affect your behavior, your body, your spiritual, your relational, everything in your life becomes affected by this. PTSD is like a cancer. It's like smoke. And it affects everyone in the house, that secondary trauma. That Reboot Combat Recovery helps to start the process of healing by bringing a group of veterans and their spouses together. One of the things that made it so special was we didn't just allow the spouse to be in attendance. We actually ask that they attend, that they come, and that they go through this process with them. Like I said, trauma does not come just from combat. Trauma comes from sin. And when their spouses realize this, there's this huge aha moment, because so many of them, their spouses are talking about, we've had people who were shot down in helicopters, who were subject to having to shoot at children.
Oh, gosh. That's rough.
There's people like me that I witnessed terrible things with the Fort Hood shooting, and the spouses, they hear this and they're like, I can't understand what that's like at all.
No, not at all. We have no clue.
Yeah.
So are you going to be starting another program? Is that something that the folks in Mansfield area and Ashland and Worcester and that whole listening area that we have, is that something that they can jump on or recommend it to somebody?
Absolutely. We're hoping to start here at Storyside in Belleville. Hopefully by around Veterans Day, actually. If not Veterans Day, then soon after. Normally we only start in the spring and the fall. Because the summertime and Christmas time is such a difficult time to be able to meet every week. But we have not been able to provide this class for almost for over a year now.
And that was a traumatic thing for veterans too, is being stuck in their houses and yeah. And we need to help our veterans. Tell me the name of that church again.
So that's Storyside
in Belleville.
Yep.
And how can people get a hold of you or find out more about this besides, going to our community calendar?
Absolutely. So they can go to rebootrecovery.com.
Okay.
Or they can reach out to me.
And how are they reaching out to you?
So my email is airborne grunt. That's AIRBORNE grunt, GRUNT 24@gmail.com.
And I will make sure that that's posted in our show notes as well. It's a good thing you said airborne with an E, because I would have missed that part.
Yep.
Airborne grunt 24@gmail.com. All right. Because I do want to, people can just call and ask questions, but we definitely need to find out what we can do. And with Veterans Day just around the corner, we definitely need to be talking more about PTSD and how to help our veterans.
Yeah. It's hard because with Veterans Day, it's supposed to be a celebration of us, but the only thing that I can ever think of on Veterans Day is the brothers that aren't there celebrating it with me.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we do the same thing. My little Marine group, we post all the pictures of the ones that we lost, some in combat and some in other ways, but yeah, same thing. I want you to keep connected with us here at Shine FM, and I want to know what's on your calendar. So make sure that you let us know. And if there's anything going on that we can help to get the word out about PTSD, please get in contact with me.
Absolutely. If you would also like to go to Warriors Respite on YouTube, I have some videos posted there about what we're trying to do and some of the classes that we'll be offering. It's a whole in-depth kind of expose about what we would love to see come to our corner of Ohio.
All right. We'll definitely do that. All right.
Great. Well, thanks you so much for hosting me.
Yes.